Welcome to the Point of No Return podcast, a show at the intersection of technology and strategy. On this show, we interview industry leaders and experts to better understand how they think about strategy during this time of exponential progress.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Point of No Return podcast. I'm your host, Nectar. On today's show, we spoke with Anie Rouleau, founder and CEO at Baléco. Anie is the CEO of Baléco Inc., where she handles product, sales, and financing. If you don't know Baléco, you probably know one of their products called the Unscented Company. She believes in a more sustainable lifestyle. Baléco is a BCorp certified business, and we get into that into our conversation. And she's trying to rewrite some of the rules in terms of what it takes to build an ethical and responsible company. Anie founded the company in 2012 with one goal in mind: help businesses and individuals reduce their environmental impact. So it's a B Corp, but has a profit motive in terms of selling their products, but as very different in the sense that they're very responsible in terms of their sourcing and in terms of their product development. We had a very wide-ranging conversation where we spoke about how her parents helped her launch her entrepreneurial journey, her travels to 18 countries in 18 different months, something I was a little bit jealous of, the reason, her mission for wanting to help the environment, going through some tough times in her business, right? Everyone thinks that building a business is all fun and there's always the success stories, but there could be tough times, and Anie was very open in sharing some of these difficult periods. And then finally, we spoke about the values and principles she lives by. Annie's a really impressive entrepreneur. She has a global vision. I think that I took away a lot from today's conversation, and I think you will as well. Thank you. Anie, it's a real pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I was very happy that Marie-Josée introduced us and that we're able to sit down and chat, and I have a million questions I want to get to about Baléco and the very interesting work that you're doing. But before we get there, I want to ask kind of a simple question. What did your parents teach you about entrepreneurship?
Oh my God, everything. I had the chance to grow up in an entrepreneurial family. Both my parents were entrepreneurs. At 9 years old, I remember my mother went outside, took the picnic table, brought it in downstairs, put a chair, put a phone on the table, and told my father, "Here it is. That's your office." And it was as easy as that for them to start a business. And my mother had a business of her own also. And I grew up talking about cash flow, talking about growth, talking about mise à pied. I don't know how to say that in English, but definitely talking about all the subjects about the business. It was our daily reality. But I saw something even, I think, bigger than that, than starting a business and growing a business. I realized that the entrepreneurs in the village were people that were very much solicited. They were involved in the community. My father was president of Club des Lions. My mother was president of the Women Association. They were in charge of the Christmas parade. They were truly involved in the community, and that part really stuck in my mind as a child, saying, oh my God, okay, the entrepreneur is not only starting a business, creating jobs, but is also involved in the community. And I think that's the nicest lesson I learned from my parents as entrepreneurs.
Yeah, you can't always disassociate the two, right? Like being a company is, it's filled with people, and those people are part of a community. So tying the two are important. Yeah. Did you always have a vision of wanting to start your own companies, found them, or did it happen later?
No, I absolutely always knew, even at school, even at university, I was the one starting all the initiatives. So even back then, I remember the university at the end, I received the prize most likely to start our own business. So I think even the people around me knew that I was an entrepreneur in my blood, and it really something that I wanted to do also. So I focused on that.
So how quickly after graduating, since you got, you had the award, you had the most likely to start a company. How quickly did you say, okay, you know what, let's do this? Like, how long did it take?
Actually, my father, I wanted to join the family business right then. And my father had a business of manufacturing equipment to build power lines. So it was not really a field that I liked, but what I liked most was, the management of the business. So I asked him, I said, okay, I finished my university? Because he said, Anie, there's no way that any kids will join the business if they don't have, university degree. I said, okay, fine. That's a good deal. So I finished my university degree and I go see him and I said, okay, I'm ready. He says, no. There's another part you didn't understand. You need to go work for somebody else for a few years and then we'll talk. So that's what I did. I worked on the stock market because I was a financial major from University of Ottawa. And, my God, for 2 years, I kept asking him because I wanted to join the family business. And after 2 years, he said, okay, come and join me. He knew that was something I really wanted to do. And very quickly, I asked him, I said, okay, you know what? You're established in Canada. I really would like to go open the US market. So at the age of 24, I drove down to Birmingham, Alabama, and I started the same type of business that he had. So a warehouse with assembly plant and a foundry, aluminum foundry down in Birmingham, Alabama. So really early 20s, I was already in the entrepreneurial mode.
So yeah, I can imagine a 24-year-old driving down in Alabama saying, hey, I'm going to start this. What was that experience like?
Oh my God. I think it was the most rich experience for a young woman back then, to grow in a business mainly man dominated because it was manufacturing equipment and electricity businesses and engineers. And in Birmingham, there was not that much women working back then. So we're looking at early, in the mid-90s, 95, 96, 97. Until 2000, I was in Birmingham. There was two reality, very few women. And there was a reality also of segregation that for me was difficult to see and accept, which I never accepted, but just to see and accept that it actually existed still, because in Quebec, we do not have that reality. So that reality for me was something I had to really, address. The other part, well, no, you know what? We built the assembly and maybe I did have an advantage because everyone knew there was a woman at Hydrocom International. So I would get the entrance. And then the only thing I had to do is pitch and get the job done. And my father always told me, Anie, there's nothing more powerful than knowing your stuff. So I knew my stuff.
Yeah. And what happened after Hydrocom?
Well, actually,
what was the evolution of it?
The evolution of it until 2000, I stayed in Birmingham, and to my father's great joy, he received an offer from our main competitor on a piece of napkin in a restaurant in Montreal. They put the number and they gave it to my father. My father sold the business within 15 minutes. There was a little written note. And my father told him, he says, if the deal is more than 8.5 by 11 page, then I'm not signing. And so they were able to deal the entire purchase on one page.
How is that even possible?
You know what? Even Stikeman Elliott was involved in all those big companies and the Harris Bank and the Banque de Montréal. I remember everyone sitting at the table and looking at my parents saying, no, they won't be happening. But the two presidents agreed on it. Yeah. My father and the new owner, and they agreed it had to be short and it had to be feasible quickly. And there was a little note saying that Anie must stay on board just to assume the transition, which I did. And I agreed to do that because I thought it was important.
Why was it important for your father for the deal to be succinct and for obviously for the other gentleman as well? Was it just a question of values or where did it come from?
I think it came from value. It came that as an entrepreneur, we didn't deal with lawyers and accountant, fiscalist. And you know what? Too many people. We had one accountant that would do our monthly. And for him, probably he thought that maybe that was overwhelming. And the other gentleman, the other CEO, Dominic, wanted the business. He wanted this deal to happen upon exactly the value of my father.
Yeah.
And he wanted to respect his wishes also. He wanted to have the business, but he didn't want to create a monster out of it. And both gentlemen agreed on it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's rare to hear these stories today. Like you hear these stories and they end up being more exceptions than rather the rule.
Yeah. Today, I think so.
Like in deals that we see, it's oftentimes, like army of lawyers and accountants and, endless paperwork, and like everyone wants to be safe. And I get it. You do due diligence. You want to make sure that, the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted. But there is an appeal to me, at least I feel at a deeper human level, that is sometimes just, shake a person's hand.
Gentleman handshake.
And,
they didn't even show up at the office at the beginning. They didn't come to do the due diligence. They knew we had a good product from what we were putting on the market. They knew we had the confidence of the customers. They knew the quality because probably they'd purchased the products, and they wanted to have access to that.
Yeah.
So, yep.
So if we fast forward a little bit after, so what happened? You joined the company for a bit. How long did you stay?
I stayed for 4 years. After 4 years, I showed up at the board of directors and I said, gentlemen, it's time for me to go. The transition is done. It is transparent to the employees, the customers, and the suppliers. That was important to me. But right now I need to go around the world and travel for 2 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And learn about what's going on elsewhere.
Oh, that's incredible. Okay. So yeah, well, we'll talk about that period a little bit. I didn't find that in my research. Where did you go? What did you do?
They actually gave me as a gift to leave and to thank me for the work I'd done, a one-way ticket to Beijing. So they started my trip going in China. I stayed in, I would say 18 countries over 18 months. I didn't stay 24 months, 18 months, one country a month. From China to Chile, Cuba, Australia, South Africa, Zambia, Zimbabwe, anywhere I had not gone. And mind you, I have a lot to do still, but I wanted to sit down in every parliament and understand the social economic issue of countries, what was going on. And after 18 months, I came back to Montreal with one common denominator. Everywhere I sat down, there was the environment. So that you're talking 2004. And right then, the environment became my source of inspiration.
Yeah. What specifically are tied to the environment?
From Africa, the scarcity, you say, of water? Scarcity of the water. Thank you. La rareté. When I dove the Great Barrier Reef and I saw the reef being gray, very little fish, there was something underwater that struck me. Seeing a plane in Chile stealing water to go back to Argentina because they didn't have enough rainfall to supply their vineyards. So water, the environment, for me, that was those image that stuck to me.
Yeah. So what led you then to wanting to start your own company? I imagine that you saw a lot of the environmental crises and I think it's a subject obviously people talk about, but even today I think it's not truly appreciated, the kind of scale and scope. We're recording this, we're May 3rd.
Exactly.
With 17 degrees below seasonal.
Absolutely.
Which is kind of like, it's a little scary. I'm like, again, I'm no scientist. I'm not a climate
but we
researcher,
do feel it. We feel it. Our generation is feeling the time.
Within one generation, I'm young enough old enough to remember that, hey, this wasn't always the case here. So we are still seeing the real physical impact. So from that, you then decided to, okay, you know what, I want to take action, being someone that's action driven. What did you do to say, okay, I want to launch something in this space? How did that process go around?
Directly proportional from when I came back, I said, okay, my next business will definitely have a focus, and the heart of the business will be the environment. The environment will be at the heart of the business. That's exactly what I want to say. And there was also a situation where I was intolerant to fragrances. So that put aside, I figured that starting Baléco, my next project, I was able to launch a business in the cleaning products. That really, saying that way is not sexy at all, because cleaning products, everyone does that. But for me, it was more than having a soap company. It was mainly to redefine the notion of clean. And redefining the notion of clean comes from the product that you produce, the soap, being biodegradable, fragrance-free, dye-free, the best ingredients possible for the planet, but for your health also. But there was a major also environment challenge that we needed to address, was the single-use plastic packaging. In my environment, in my industry, that's the biggest challenge, because I'm part of an industry that we pollute on a daily basis with tons of plastic packaging. So my business model had to, yes, have soap that was more biodegradable, but smartly designed to reduce the packaging and our plastic footprint. Yeah. So that's why. So all that led to my business model.
So that was the business plan day one.
That was the business plan day one.
So what did you do? You're like, okay, like it's time to do this. Did you go out raise money? Did you go find a team? Like, what were the first steps?
The first thing I called was l'Ordre des chimistes du Québec to find myself a good chemist to produce formulas. So that was my first step. I found one, produced my formula, put a mortgage on my house to start the business, pay this guy and just start looking for packaging and think of the business and buy a little accounting software. Just little things to start a business. And that was it. After a year, I had products that I was able to go and sell on the market.
Wow. Yeah. So very quickly, within a year, you were able to go out. And when did you realize that you had something that was going to work? Like, how long did it take to say, okay, there's customers, they're buying? And secondary to that, what was the go-to-market strategy?
Okay. It took a good 4 years, because we're talking 2011 and we're in 2019 on May 3rd, as you say, and we still are amazed about the issue of the environment and the climate change. Back then, in 2011, I was starting a business, cleaning products, eco-friendly. Oh, well, it doesn't work and it's too expensive. Secondly, I'm asking the customer to be fragrance-free. If it doesn't smell lemon, it's not clean. And thirdly, I'm saying, oh, you know what? Why don't you go back to the store and refill your bottle? So my business model was at 3 strikes at the beginning. So I had to go through a lot of education to the customer before I was able to raise awareness. So it took me 4 years. After 4 years, though, in 2016, the unscented company, I think from being unscented, striked a chord saying, oh my God, okay, actually she's right with that. And all the environment and seeing the ocean plastic and seeing the Green New Deal lately in New York that they're going to ban single-use plastic. Montreal, Valérie Plante wants to do it also. The environment, the issue on the plastic and the zero waste has raised much more awareness, and then I can see my business is viable.
So in those dark years, if we could call them dark years, right, that 4-year period, were there any moments of doubt or any periods you're like, you know what, this is not going to work, and maybe I should actually, close shop and do something else?
Nectar, every year I would postpone 6 months, saying, okay, in 6 months, if I don't reach that goal, I got to close and I got to go work. I would postpone it and postpone it. I knew every night I would go to bed thinking, what am I doing? I've got 2 kids, 4 years old, 5 years old. I've put a mortgage on my house. But every morning I would walk in my office with butterflies in my stomach saying, Annie, you have to stick with that. It's going to happen. We can continue doing that. It's not logical. And I would postpone, okay, just another 6 months. And I would convince my parents and my friends and my family to stick with me, because they did help me. There was a little bit of love money at some point.
Yeah. So in those dark times for you, it was a question of like, you knew it was the right mission. You knew you guys were working on solving a very important, deep problem, and the market caught up with you.
Yeah.
So you had the vision early enough. So it's really a question of timing, right? Where it's like now people kind of understand. So maybe give us a bit of a scope, understanding of kind of like the trajectory since you guys have been able to like get actual customers, get repeat business. So how's the business grown?
But actually, the launch of the Unscented company, which is the brand to the retail, really, that was in 2016. Really, I would say clarified my offer. My position on the market was very clear. So I was able to right away go into retail like Les Rachel Berry at Sobeys. And now we're at Avril, and we signed a deal right away with Bulk Barn across Canada. So really, my go-to-market was done quickly the past 2 years. Retail stores have caught on to me. Now I'm waiting in a few days actually for the Metro's listing. So Metro has listed the products. People in Hong Kong have seen the product. They've ordered it. Dubai, New York. So I can sense now there's a demand and there's an awakening that's been done.
Yeah. You have like tailwind instead of a headwind right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you getting it pushed by investors as well? Or people are saying, hey, you have something here. Maybe we want to invest or.
Exactly. It's been like 4 months now. I'm trying to push even them back saying, okay, I've been looking for financing for the past 7 years. It was not really available. Although I have to say that BDC was really at the beginning the ones that truly believed in the business. And now since about 6 months, absolutely. Yeah. Now I think people are knocking on the door, but I'm careful.
How do you and I imagine is your core customer female? Is it a woman that purchases most of your products a day?
It's still women that purchase the category of cleaning products. Yeah. We find that our business, our comments, our social media, we have also a lot of those single men that lives alone in an apartment that doesn't really feel like smelling of lavender or citrus in their apartment. Yeah. So my brand, I've really built the brand to be more unisex.
Yeah. And do you feel that you need to overcome the challenge of like fragrance from a product perspective, saying, hey, you need to convince people?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a daily challenge. People have been taught and have been brainwashed over the past 50 years by the big conglomerate that it has to smell something to perform. So the smell is associated to the performance, which there's absolutely no chemical reasons behind that. The performance comes from the cleaning agents, doesn't come from the fragrance. But it does give the product a sense of task. If you clean, your house smells clean. So I have to overcome that. But we do overcome by saying to the people, you know what? If you feel like you want to add any essential oil to your product, please do. But synthetic fragrances, you don't need that. Today, we're overexposed with fragrance. You open your garbage bags, there's lavender coming out. There's scents everywhere. Yeah.
And how big do you think is the opportunity? It sounds like you're sitting at a really interesting inflection point where the company can really grow. Have you thought of like what big is your total addressable market today?
I've addressed it, and I believe that, I know the market is growing in the double-digit percentage, which is really not the conventional brands. The fact that I'm eco-friendly, the fact that I'm fragrance-free, the market is growing. I'm still looking at the different analysis to see exactly what would be my part of the pie. But throughout the United States and Canada, now I'm across Canada. I'm a niche market because I'm unscented, but I'm the reference now of unscented. And I'm the reference of refilling your bottles. So I do unscented. Those are my two differentiate aspect, and refillables.
Yeah. And I think there's also, and you could correct me here if I'm wrong, I see there's other successes in the market. I look at a Method, for instance.
Absolutely.
Or an Honest company. And what they've done, I feel like there's enough variety of demand right now that it could support multiple successful companies in the space. And the larger players are just not as nimble as you are to be able to respond to these niche interests.
Exactly. And Methods, which I think they've done a tremendous, beautiful job to raise awareness in the market, was bought by Ecovert, that was bought by SC Johnson. So even the big players are setting their foot inside this market, this environmentally friendly market. Seventh Generation is a great example that was just purchased by Unilever. So the industry is also moving. That means there's a demand. These guys would not look at a market if there was not something going on. So it's actually a very good news because it gives me the space to grow inside that market because there is a market to it.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest misconception about eco-friendly products?
There's two things: too expensive and doesn't work. That's the two things that on a daily basis we're confronted. Yeah. But there's nothing far from the truth. It's absolutely not true. The green chemistry is affordable, is competitive.
Is it more? Is there a higher cost aspect to the business because of it, or not?
You know what? For me right now, it's hard to answer that question because as a B Corp certified business, we favor, and I will always make sure that my suppliers are local. So 90% of my suppliership is within 500 kilometers. So the cost of my components are a bit higher because I don't go in India or Mexico or China to produce my bottles, my caps, my labels, or my boxes. So really, perhaps I'm a bit expensive on the market, but that doesn't say that the green chemistry is more expensive. I think green chemistry is available and it is very affordable, and people can go out there and get themselves a good eco-friendly product.
Yeah.
That is competitive.
What are you most excited about with the business today?
Oh my God, because I find that this movement, 7 years ago, the vision I had was able to change the industry standards and change the consumer's habit by going unscented, by going bulk, and by refilling. And it's actually happening. The industry is following. 7 years ago, I was not able to have meetings for people. 1 out of 10 said, okay, come and talk to me. But I had 9 no's right at bat. And today we're changing the industry standards because people are actually copying what I'm doing. And I think it's great. I don't see it as a competitive aspect. I see it as, oh my God, we are going to make a true difference together. If more people do like me, it's very good.
Yeah, I really like the 9 rejections for every, 1 yes.
Yes.
I'm guessing your close rate has gone up since.
It's gone up because you know what? Those 4 years, the dark years that you said, every time I would have a no, I knew there was a yes somehow coming closer. So every time they told me no, I said, okay, the yes is closer.
Yeah. Are you looking to hire a 24-year-old Anie to go and expand into the US for you?
She's already hired. She's starting mid-May, actually. Since Gwyneth Paltrow saw the brand on Instagram, the Unscented Company, wrote an article on us in her newsletter. Wow. Yes. So we're part of her 7th essential cleaning products, and she added her product line to her Goop website. It really attracted awareness in the US. We have a great store in Brooklyn that has our product. I think it's now, the momentum is now. We have a lot of demand on the web, but because we're shipping out of Montreal, they abandoned their carts because the shipping is too expensive. So I do need to have a foot in the US. So Megan is starting mid-May on her team, and she'll develop the northeast of the US.
That's incredible.
Oh,
That's
it is. It's exciting.
That's
exciting.
So today, the US represents a very small percentage of
Absolutely.
Your sales.
2%.
Yeah, but it should be 90%.
It will be much more than the Canadian market.
Yeah.
because their environmental issue is not quite there. They're a bit behind, so there's place to grow.
Yeah. What advice do you have for other companies that want to think about being more eco-friendly and more sustainable? Obviously, the community aspect. Do you have any principles that you tend to follow or give advice on?
Every time I have a chance to say and talk about that in the office, I keep saying a company in 2030, that's tomorrow, that is not transparent, inclusive, socially and environmentally responsible will be obsolete. I have to remind me those values on a daily basis. As a B Corp, we have a tendency of putting these values inside every decision, purchasing, selling, opening the market, new products. But I remind me of those. Being transparent, inclusive, socially and environmentally responsible are my core business.
Yeah, this is a great place to maybe close off. Anie, one last question would be where can people find out more about what you're doing if they want to connect with you?
Actually, they can go on my website, which is theunscentedcompany.com. And from there, you can find our values, our certification, list of the products, and we ship within 24 hours.
That's it, at the cart.
At the cart. Thank you.
It was a real pleasure, Anie. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for listening to the Point of No Return podcast. Never miss an episode by clicking on the subscribe button on iTunes or Google Play.